On today's episode of the CLS Experience, we have a very exclusive treat. She is the CEO and co-founder of the dynamic, multifaceted business. This girl is on fire, and she's a four-time #1 Sunday Times bestselling author. No big deal. She is a definition of a rock star and charismatic entrepreneur, and her award-winning broadcasting experience is top-notch, having interviewed some of the biggest names on the planet, including Oprah, Beyoncé, and Amy Schumer, just to name a few. She is the master at helping middle-aged people reclaim their passion and purpose in their lives, and her growth mindset is absolutely contagious. She's just a juggernaut in all facets of life and a terrific wife, mother, and human. Please welcome the impressive, brilliant, and beautiful, the abundant Andrea McLean. How you doing, Andrea?
I want to do what footballers do over here in the UK and just run around with my arms in the air. That was amazing. Thank you. And I know your introductions are always excellent. So I know I'm not the first interviewee to say that, but that was very nice. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
There's one tiny thing that I want to just correct, just in case people go, hang on a minute. I'm a #1 Sunday Times bestselling author. But I only hit #1 once.
Oh,
sadly.
So far.
But I've written 4 books, and I have hit the Sunday Times bestseller list many times. But it was like so close. But no, I've only hit #1 once. But I'm working on it.
I stand corrected, but I also want to say it's already done. Time just hasn't caught up yet.
I like that. I like that.
What's so funny is we probably could have chatted for an hour before we hit record, but we're like, let's save the juicy stuff for the show. You and I connected. You said it was about a year ago. I can't believe it's been that long. But one of the many things that I love about you is you're really big on reinvention, and we're going to dive into it and so forth. For the audience listening, we're about 4 million now. If you're not familiar with Andrea, my suggestion is do a deep dive, read her books, check out her awesome content, play catch up. What I think is most valuable today is we just have an unbelievable conversation. Before we dive in, we're going to get a little weird. You ready for me?
Oh my gosh. So far, you've asked me, am I ready to get nuts? And now am I ready to get weird? This is going to be the best afternoon of my life. Yes.
Okay. Andrew, what are some non-negotiables for you personally on a daily basis?
Gosh, I've never thought about that before. What a brilliant opening question. Non-negotiables. This is going to sound really British, but I'm really not very good with rude people. So a non-negotiable for me, especially now I've stepped away from a career that I spent so long just having to deal with things that I didn't necessarily want to deal with. Not being around people who are obnoxious, I think, is a non-negotiable. And I'm really blessed now that what I do is I work with people that I genuinely like. I say yes to things that I genuinely love. And I think that has become something that I drew a line in the sand with and felt a bit uncomfortable for a while. And now it's just a habit that I do. As in, and I know we spoke about this just before we started recording, I'm so much better now at saying no to something that I think, actually, it's just not really very me. So that.
Good for you, right? And something that I'm really big on now, and I've gotten much better, is protecting for the life of me my energy. And one way I'm able to do that is to say no, or create boundaries, or distance myself from anyone or anything that has the power to bring down my vibe or lower my frequency. It sounds like that's kind of what you're referring to.
100%. And there's sort of 2 reasons for that. The first is this sort of mental energy. Because I now work in a totally different space to what I did before, it was something that I had been such a fan of and had looked at from the outside, and then obviously sort of retraining and jumping and going all in on it. I'm now surrounded by people who genuinely have a high energy, but also they want to make high impact in a really positive way. They want every interaction to be a positive one. And this was something that I think I was kind of born this way, and I've always tried to do, but I realized I was sort of doing it in perhaps the wrong arena. So that's mental energy, but also physical energy. I burned out in 2019. I hit a mental and physical wall, and we call it the year of the face plant in this house because it was like a comic book. I just literally just went and face planted. And it was just mentally, physically, I just couldn't go on anymore. And I burnt out from saying yes to too many things, and also not protecting my mental boundaries as well. So I learned from that. So now Nick and I have a saying. The story that it comes from is to do with a rowing team in the Olympics, but I won't go into it. But anyway, we ask ourselves, this thing that we're considering doing, will it make the boat go faster? And if the answer is no, we just say no to it. And then there's a little caveat. Will it make the boat go faster, but it actually sounds like lots of fun? Then yes, we will. But yes, there are boundaries for both Nick and I, because we work together, my husband and I, containing and protecting our mental energy and also our physical energy.
So good. And where do I begin, right? So much to unpack there. For you personally, and it's something that I started doing as well, you work closely with your husband and so forth. And I imagine to some people that could be for really anybody, it could be challenging. How do you guys set that up to be successful, not only in business, but make sure that the integrity and the core principles of your relationship stays intact as well?
That's such a good question, again, because it's when you first start working with your husband, your wife, your partner, however, your relationship is, it always starts out because you have a joint passion. So you're jointly very excited about something and you think it's an amazing idea. What the mistake that we all make is we think that energy will stay forever. And of course it doesn't. That's like setting a New Year's resolution when you're feeling really excited about something. And you know this from running your marathons. It's all very well on January 1st going, yeah, I'm going to do this amazing thing. And then it gets to March and it's raining and you're training. You're thinking, why did I say yes to this? It's a similar thing. So for us, the difficulties and challenges that we have had in running a business together also come into play when we have difficulties and challenges with we are husband and wife, we are parents, we are step parents, we are co-parents, we're a blended family. We have obviously parents that we care for and have to look out for. There are so many cogs in our machine that keep us going. So the issues that crop up there are the same as the issues that crop up in work, but the sort of grease that keeps the machine going is love. Now, that might not sound like a very business-like kind of dynamic, but when you are, metaphorically butting heads, when either one of you wants to go in one direction, the other one doesn't agree or whatever, it's the same thing, whether you're having a disagreement over parenting, over, we have a house full of teenagers and, one wants to stay out late, one wants to go and see friends on the other side of the country, and we're juggling all of that. The grease that makes the cogs work is love. And where we've been able to, overcome really challenging times, with me quitting my job in the middle of a pandemic, Nick quitting his job to go all in as well, and the stresses that makes, you'd think that having a relationship would be the difficult part, but actually it's the bit that keeps it going.
So good and so special. And a word that came to mind as you were describing that was, I imagine you guys put a big emphasis on the word respect, right? Like you don't always have to agree, but at the end of the day, you got to respect each other.
What is so wonderful actually about our relationship, we're a normal couple, we bicker like anybody else, and we're a normal couple, but at the heart of everything is respect. And he respects me and I respect him as a human being. And even though, yes, absolutely, I think he's too hard, he thinks I'm too soft, all the normal sort of stuff, actually it works, because at the end of the day, literally when we lay in bed at night, and we have this little practice that we do at the end of every day, the light turns out and we ask each other, what 3 things are you grateful for? and sometimes really hard to think of some because it's been a terrible day. What 3 things are you grateful for? What 3 things are you proud of that you did today? And what are you looking forward to tomorrow?
Love
And no
that.
matter what kind of day we've had, whether it's been a bad business day or it's been a bad parenting day or a bad relationship day, laying in the dark and asking those questions of each other brings us right back to the core of who we are, because you can always find something to be grateful for, always find something that to be proud of, and then go to bed thinking of something you're looking forward to tomorrow. And what's so beautiful about doing that as an exercise, and we've been doing it for so long now, we don't even think about it, it's just what we do, is that when the other is having a bad day, we can go, no, you did this thing today and I was really proud of you. And they're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that thing. And we when one is down, you hold the other one up, and this sort of thing, and it just kind of works.
I love it. I love it all. It's so obvious how much love and respect you guys have for each other, and you're doing something right. So keep up the great work. And it's something for anyone that dares to get into business with their significant other to look at you guys as an example. And I know it's not always easy, but if you have some core principles and so forth, and there's an understanding, I love all of this. And I encourage you audience at the beginning of the show, because I don't want to play too much catch up, because I want the audience to do that. And I just want to hit on some awesome nuggets. But I do want to give some context, because the core message of what I do right now is reinvention. And why it's so important for me is because I spent a long time being unfulfilled, unhappy. A couple of years ago, in a different season of life, I thought money equals success. Oh boy, does it not, right? Money is very important. But there's other things like happiness, how big of an impact you make, peace, and so forth. And so I reinvented myself. And interestingly enough, I'm making more money now than I ever did. But most importantly, my soul is lit. I love this stuff. I can't get enough of it. I know I'm finally fulfilling my assignment. You also pivoted and reinvented yourself in a pretty challenging time as well, in the pandemic. Take us back. What were you doing? And you were having a lot of success with your old career and so forth. And what really pushed you over the edge to really reinvent yourself and step into something new, which can be frightening?
Well, for anyone who's maybe hearing about me for the first time, here in the UK, I was a national television broadcaster for the 23 years I was with the same broadcaster. So I started off, I worked on the equivalent of Good Morning America. So I worked on it was called GMTV and Good Morning Britain. The name changed over the years. And then I went on to become the longest serving anchor of a program called Loose Women. Loose Women is the same as The View in America. So I was basically a face of daytime television for 2 decades. People grew up with me. I have people stop me in the street going, oh my gosh, I remember watching you when I was a kid before going to school, and and this sort of thing. So I was a very trusted, recognized face of TV, and I did love my job. It was a great job. However, I have always been interested in personal growth. I'm a very empathetic, nurturing person, which came across obviously in the interviews that I did in broadcasting. But the two were just starting to feel like they weren't marrying, and so I tried to start something on the outside of my broadcasting career, which was, it started off as a simple online blog where I thought, I'm so fortunate that I get access to these amazing experts that people would not be able to come across in their normal lives. So I have them in my phone book. So let me ring them and interview them and give this information out to people so I can help women. And it started off all women, and then I realized actually my biggest audience is women of my age. And I was in my 40s at the time. I'm 53 now.
Are
And
you?
I am.
Wow, you're doing something really right. You look unbelievable, straight up.
That was a beautiful introduction, or interruption, should I say, and I thank you very much for it. Thank you. I don't know. I think when you enjoy what you do, it just kind of shines out of your face. Do
Hell
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
But also 53 years young, just getting warmed up.
Do you know, I have a little saying that I accidentally coined, and again, this is going off on a slight tangent, but a few years ago, I was 49. I did a program called SAS Who Dares Wins, which I think in America, it's called Special Forces, and it's the same premise, where basically you're taken away by a bunch of Marines and ex-servicemen, and you're treated horrendously for a week. And I had to fall backwards out of a helicopter. You get kidnapped in a bag over your head and interrogated. It's dreadful. But it changed my life. And the reason I bring it up is because I said something on that show that was a throwaway comment, has now become my mantra. I'm halfway through, not halfway done. And
I know exactly what you talk about. It was right before you went backwards out of a helicopter. No big deal.
no big deal. I know. Mad. And actually,
Wait, say it again, because I think it's so good. What's the mantra?
I'm halfway through, not halfway done.
Unbelievable.
I think that by the time you get to midlife, and if you imagine your lifeline going to 80, then folded in half, okay, that's 40. If you're going to live to 100, it's 50. So at some point, we've got this weird idea in our head that, well, I'm halfway through, and then you kind of slump and think, oh, I'm just going to sit it out to the end. What a waste. What a shame. You've got all this information and experience in your head. So I'd had all of this. I'd been running This Girl Is on Fire as this online blog. And then, of course, the pandemic happened. And everything changed for everybody. I mean, obviously, my experience is mine, yours is yours. Everybody listening or watching will have had their own unique experience. But I think the global experience that we all had during the pandemic was this feeling of, is this it? I mean, oh my God, is this Armageddon? Is this it? Is my life ever going to be the same again after this? But then there's also this little voice whispering, do I want it to be the same after this? And I listened to that and realized, no, I don't. Okay, so now I've had this realization. What do I do with it? So Nick and I, again, we had a long conversation about, I was so passionate about what I was doing. I was writing my book, This Girl Is on Fire, at the same time during the pandemic. And I realized, actually, I don't want to go back to my old life. I want to start a new one where this is what I do now. I want to jump all in. And the first thing that rises with that is excitement, and very closely followed by that is abject screaming fear, because I have an amazing job that I'm well respected, well paid, well regarded, I'm well known. These are things that people spend a lifetime fighting to get, and I have it, and I want to hand the keys back and say, I don't want to do this anymore because it doesn't feel right. Am I insane? And I thought, no, I'm actually clearer headed than I've ever been. I want to do something for me. And so we worked on something that we call our blueprint for failure. And what that was basically, we sat at our kitchen table one evening and we're right, okay, so you do this thing, you quit your job. What's the worst thing that could happen? So like, right, okay, so we looked at bank accounts and savings and jobs that were coming in, and right, this is how long we can last while we're building the business. Okay, the worst thing that could happen is that tap gets switched off and we have no more money coming in. Right, now what would we do? Well, I do this. Okay, what if the worst thing that can happen on that level? Well, this. Could you live with that? Yes. Brilliant. And we work down the way, which is the opposite to a vision board and a success plan and everything else. What was so brilliant about it was it meant that I looked at every worst case scenario until I got to pretty much the monster under the bed. And I shone a light on it and thought, could I live with that? Yes. And we looked at each other and went, well, that's it then. And the next day, I typed out a resignation letter in the notes section of my phone, and I went into work. Now, working in TV is quite similar to some other industries where sometimes if you quit your job, you have to leave instantly. It's not like, I don't know, you work a 3-month period of notice or whatever. Right. Sometimes you have to leave instantly. So I didn't tell anyone. And I did what I thought could have been my very last day. So I was silently in my head saying, bye-bye to the security man, goodbye to the girl I would every day buy my coffee from, to the people in makeup, the people in wardrobes, the people in the production team. Some of these have been kids when they started. I've known them for nearly 20 years. And I did the show. And as I said, my final, the people are in the gallery and they're talking me down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I looked down camera 1 and said, and that's it for today. Goodbye. And in my head, I was thinking, oh my God, I might never see these people again. And I went in my car after the show and I copied and pasted my resignation letter, put it in an email, and pressed send and started the engine and drove home, thinking I have no idea what's going to happen next. And about half an hour later, I got a phone call from the head of daytime for the network. And the first thing she said was, "Oh my God, I've been in a meeting and I've just got your email. Are you okay? Is everything all right?" And I said, "Yeah, my time is done. I'm really ready to move on and do something else." And actually, they were wonderful. They allowed me to stay for another month until the end of my contract, and that's why I'd done it at that time. I thought I want to do the right thing and honor my contract and do it all properly. And actually, I had a beautiful send off. I got to say goodbye to everybody. I got to say goodbye to the nation, and I cried in front of millions and millions of people when I told them what I was doing. And people have asked me after, why did you cry on national television when you told everybody that you were leaving? And the reason for that is when you've had a goal or you've had a dream or something you've been working on the side, and then you decide, I'm going to go all in on this. When you verbalize it and say it out loud, you're making yourself accountable, because suddenly you're telling everybody this little whisper that you've had. And there's this fear that you're going to make a fool of yourself, that it's all going to go horribly wrong. When I did it, I wasn't just telling my boss, I told a whole country. So while half the country are going, "That's amazing, you're so brave, and I wish I could do what you did, and go girl, and that's amazing," the other side are going, "Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to sit this car crash." And that's what's happening.
Yep.
Actually, it was great, because the fear of making a fool of yourself is gone. Everybody knows what's the worst that could happen. It could all go wrong. Okay.
Yeah, hell yeah. And also, like, most people make that type of drastic pivot when things are really bad. And I want to acknowledge you, because I would argue that it's even more courageous to do it when things are really good, right? Because it's like the golden handcuffs analogy, so to speak.
Well, it is like, when you think about when most of us leave relationships, we normally leave when they're terrible.
Correct.
We when we're arguing or everyone's getting on each other's nerves. Yeah, no, well, we both have. I've been married 3 times. So
have you?
I have.
Wow. Okay. Third time's a charm.
Got it right the third time. So, but again, there's shame around that. There's humiliation around that, until you sit back and think, actually, no, I've been so blessed that I've been in a relationship that obviously started with love, and then for a variety of reasons ended up not working out. But actually, I had the strength within me to decide, actually, I don't want this anymore, and to leave. Where is the shame in that? Actually, it takes a hell of a lot of strength to do that. But yeah, going back to what you were saying in terms of work, leaving when it's good is hard, because there's no real reason to go other than it doesn't feel right. But if something doesn't feel right, and you're in the middle of a global pandemic and you don't know if this is the apocalypse, then you may as well jump, because what have you got to lose?
Right. And also, like, I'm really big on helping my community and audience on there's 2 different perspectives, right? One is what can go wrong, which I think most people entertain, but then there's the other one, but what can go right? Right? If you remove that scarcity and remove some of that blockage, you just think abundantly, and I consider myself a little delusionally optimistic, but it's all good, because what's the alternative? Be realistic. I wasn't realistic when I started this, right? I was delusionally optimistic. So I like to suggest what can go right. And I imagine consciously or subconsciously, you had that mindset and you wanted to probably do a couple things. Number one, spread your wings, do something for you, maybe make more of an impact, so to speak. And just listen to that whisper, right? Because it's never going to be a shout. Sometimes it's just a whisper. It's an intuition. It's a calling. And it takes 20 seconds of courage to just raise the volume and then lean into it, right?
I think also, how we phrase it in this house, and you can't see it, but I've actually got a picture up on my wall just over there. And we call it what if, because, you know, oh, what if it goes wrong? What if everyone laughs? What if I'm a failure? All of these what ifs, flip it on its head. And every time you think, well, what if it goes wrong? What if it goes right? What if I make a fool of myself? What if I don't? What if I try this and everybody laughs? What if they cheer? You don't know. And if you can look so stridently at all the things that might go wrong while doing that to all the things that might go right, you're only looking at half the picture. You need to look at the other half. And surely, you know, fortune favors the brave. Give it a go. Whatever it is that you're thinking of doing, and you have your worries, make your blueprint for failure, roll up your sleeves and do it and try.
That's it. And I love that you said that. And also, I'm curious. You can't really, it would be irresponsible to tell people to not care what people think, because we're actually wired to care what people think. We just want to be selective and make sure that we care what the right people think. And you mentioned a couple times, like, what if people laugh at you or stuff like that? How do you personally handle or deal with haters or people that disagree? And so, because no matter how good you are or how great you are, there's always that rule of 10%, where 10% of people, no matter what you say, are just not going to vibe with you. How do you personally handle that?
I'm used to it. And I think because I worked in network broadcasting for so long, I'm used to people either loving me, hating me, or being pretty ambivalent about me, because that's a normal human reaction to absolutely everybody, you know. And I think you get used very quickly to this idea that you're not everyone's cup of tea. That's fine. Some people prefer coffee. Awesome. So now we can all just carry on with our day. And I learned in my 20s. So when I worked in breakfast television, this doesn't, I don't know if it still happens now, because obviously we have social media, but it was for the days of social media. We had something that was called a duty office. So a duty office was when this lady would sit on the phone and viewers would call in, and sometimes they would ring in just about an item that was on the show. And like I say, imagine it like Good Morning America. So viewers are calling in all the time. My dressing room happened to be next door to the duty office. I was really good friends with the lady who sat on the phone. But what it meant was I could hear all the calls that came in. Ooh. So I could hear sometimes, oh, thank you so much. Yes, I'll pass that on. And what was your name? And da-da-da. And sometimes I could hear, oh, right. Okay. Yes, that's not very nice, but thank you for your feedback. And so I kind of saunter over and lean on her desk and go, what was that all about? What were they saying? And some of it obviously was feedback about me, and I'd hear it straight, literally from the horse's mouth. Sometimes I could hear it through the phone. And it taught me very quickly, all I can do is do what I do to the best of my ability. And some people are going to love it, and some people are going to hate it, and some people are not really that bothered. Just in the same way that I don't like everybody, and I love some people, and I'm pretty ambivalent about others. Why would we expect it to be any different for us? So in terms of how do I deal with the haters, I prefer it like when it was like the olden days when they just did it behind your back. Yeah. Now people have whole conversations and they tag you in on social media. And sometimes I jump in and I feel like I'm tapping them on the shoulder and I say, you do know I can hear you. When they're going back and forth going, oh, she's so this. Oh my God, I totally disagree. And everything about her is irritating. I know, right? I kind of dip in and I can, even though it's just words, I can almost visualize them going, oh, and I find it very funny. Sometimes I just literally block and move on. Yeah. Sometimes I enter in a conversation and say, hey, you seem really upset. What is it that is actually going on? And sometimes you can have a nice bit of communication, but you know, you can't please all the people all the time. And I'm all right with that.
That's it. Agreed. And also like pray for their happiness and we move on.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Only negative I got going on is we don't have 10 hours to chat, but I know it's just the beginning of the friendship. I wanted to ask you this. You and I are experts in reinvention. And why I say that is because even if you didn't like us, you couldn't deny that we both were brave enough to step into something new and be successful at it. I imagine there's so many people that feel unfulfilled or lost their spark and that want to do a little something else. and maybe they're just looking for something more exciting or more impactful, but they are paralyzed by the fear of either it's not possible or they don't think they're worthy enough, whatever the case may be. What would you say to someone in that position right now to encourage them to be brave?
There's so many layers to that, and the first thing I would say is you are you. You're not me, you're not Craig. We are so beautifully unique. So whatever it is that you're thinking of doing, all we can do is offer our perspective of it, but we're not in your shoes. So for me, my calling, as it were, was to service. I knew I had all these contacts with amazing experts, and I wanted to pay it forward in a way where I didn't just have 8 minutes to talk to someone on a live television program without going to a commercial break. I wanted to give them more time and space, and I wanted to build a safe community where women knew once they were here, everything you see, hear, and read is for your own good, and you can just breathe out and know you're in a safe, supportive space. So that was my why. What I say to anyone who's really feeling within themselves that they want to make some kind of change, whether it's a personal change or a business change, some kind of pivot, is really try to connect with your why. If your why is that you want to push away from this thing that you have right now, normally that's normally quite a negative thing. That's not a bad starter. Hating where you are, whether it's a relationship or business, is not a bad starter, but it's not sustainable. You also need a pull. So like I say, for me, my pull was into service. What I would say to you is really try and nail down what your push is and what your pull is, and how can you build a stronger case for your pull. If you're not in a situation right now where actually you can throw it all in and, guess what, honey, I quit my job. Oh my God, are you mad? What have you done? If you're not in a position to do that, that's okay, because there is always something you can do right now that can take you a step closer to it. You may have to just be more realistic about your time frame, but just because it doesn't happen immediately doesn't mean that it can't happen at all. We're so used to wanting this instant result. So, if you want a new job, do you have the qualifications you need for the new job? Okay, if you don't, fine, then look into how you can get qualifications. Do you need extra time to do these qualifications? That's okay as well. Can you look into whether you can take a paid sabbatical, or can you do it as an evening class? There are ways around taking tiny micro actions towards something that becomes a huge decision. But actually, when you've built in these little steps, two things happen. One, you get used to this feeling of working towards something new. And then you settle into the discomfort of the idea of change, because the reason why all of us are so afraid of doing anything that is different to what we're doing right now is because we're afraid of change. And that's absolutely understandable, because change is terrifying. Our brain likes everything to be all, we're cool, we're good, we know where we are. And then as soon as we introduce something that is different, our brain challenges us. So taking these micro actions and knowing this might not be happening yet, but I'm aiming for this thing, you settle into it so that by the time it happens, it doesn't feel as weird and scary. You've done all the steps beforehand. And what I say to my community is, if there's something that you're either afraid of doing and fear is holding you back, and you've taken the steps, or you've built your, whether it's a success plan or a blueprint for failure, and it's starting to feel strange, before you go to bed tonight, try and brush your teeth with the other hand. And they're like, what the hell is brushing your teeth got to do with anything? If you brush your teeth with the other hand, it feels really strange. You almost don't know how to hold your hand. And what that does is it reminds you that all you're doing is something different. Change is doing something different. So every time you start to feel overwhelmed by it, flip your toothbrush into the other hand, do that, and it will remind you, oh God, of course, I'm just feeling a bit weird because I'm doing something different. It's fine. Everything feels weird when you do it differently for the first time. You just need to get used to it.
Yeah, what an awesome analogy. And it just shows you, like, yeah, brushing your teeth with a different hand is unorthodox and it feels a little uncomfortable. But if you did it eventually, after a certain amount of reps, it would be comfortable for you. And that's just like a major decision. But also, I like what you said, with like not just waking up one day and being like, all right, I'm quitting my job and doing this, like planning it out a little bit, like having a strategy, right? Like having an intent, so to speak. And it kind of releases the pressure of all the unpredictability or inexperience that you might have.
And you will have an experience, because if you're leaving the comfort zone of something that you are really good at, even if you hate it, but you're really good at it, it is naturally going to feel really uncomfortable, and you won't have the experience because you're doing something new. So, and being cool with that, and also being realistic about, you know, when I jack my job in, and it happened on a Friday, and then by Monday I'm sitting side by side at my husband we converted our garage into an office, and we're sitting side by side with him, and like, where's hair and makeup and the studio lights and where's all the things, we're literally sitting at home working together. And it was really hard, and we laugh about it now, that bit would have been, if it was a movie, that would have like some fun music and a slightly golden tint, and I'd have my hair in a ponytail and chewing a pen, and working on all the amazing plans that we're putting together. Real life is not like that. Real life is, you quit a job on a Friday, you start on a Monday doing something totally different, and you wonder what the hell you've done.
Yeah.
And it's a grind. And that's the not romantic bit that people don't talk about. So easy to talk about, yeah, and I built an app, and we've got a community, and we're doing all these amazing things. But actually, there are 18-hour days, 7 days a week for months and months and months and months and months. And your why and your pull has to be so strong and so convincing that you would do it all again tomorrow, which is where we are.
Beautifully said. I'm so glad you touch upon that, right? Because a lot of people come up to me and like aspiring coaches, entrepreneurs, speakers, and they're like, I want to do what you're doing. And I always say to myself, or even to them, I'm like, but do you want to do what I did? Right. And the beginning of the pandemic, while everybody was watching that Tiger show on Netflix and doing a lot of day drinking, I was building the brand and putting myself out there and working 9 hours a day. Now, granted, it wasn't really work to me because I was in love with it, but that's what it took in the beginning. And pivoting for a second, speaking of Tiger, you do a really cool visualization exercise in regards to a tiger. What's the deal with that?
Oh gosh. Okay, so this is it's a visualization that I came up with when I was working with my community it was a challenge that I put together called Becoming Brave. And it started because so many women had approached me on social media, and people were, approaching me in the street saying, you've done so many brave things in your life. I mean, like SAS, who knows wins, and falling backwards out of helicopters and quitting jobs and all this sort of thing. And even, leaving relationships that haven't worked. I want to be brave like you. So I put this challenge together, and it was great. And the showing women practical steps that they could take towards working with their fear. And this is something that I feel we've got so wrong. We've got this idea of, we smash our fear, we show fear who's boss. And actually, fear is inside us, and it's with us for a reason. It's there to protect us. The problem is, it's always on high alert, and sometimes it sends up red flags. We don't need it. So I thought, I need to come up with an analogy. So I created this visualization, which is where I ask the women just to close their eyes and just listen, and I talk them through it. And I say to them, imagine you're in a cage, and it's like a cell, and there's a cage frontage, and it's very damp and dark, and it's horrible and scary, and you can't even remember how long you've been in there. You've been in there for so long. And in front of this caged wall, a huge tiger prowls up and down, up and down. And this tiger is enormous. It's the biggest tiger you've ever seen. And every time you try and edge closer to the door of this cage, it launches itself at you and is blooming terrifying. And then I talk them through the realization that actually, in all the time that you've been in this cage, the tiger has never once tried to claw at you, has never tried to get in. And you realize that he's not trying to attack you. This tiger is trying to protect you. It's trying to keep you in a safe space. So then I get them to imagine you reach and you push open the door to your cage, which has been unlocked all along. And as you step out, the tiger launches itself at you and is on your chest. His paws are on your chest and it is roaring and roaring so loudly. And all you can hear is this deafening noise and your heart is pounding and you are drowning in fear. And then you open your eyes and look up into this tiger's face and you realize it's female. And actually, it is so frightened for you that it just wants to keep you where you are. And the way to overcome the fear that the tiger is feeling for you and the fear that you are feeling right now is love. So you force yourself to look into the eyes of this absolutely horrifying tiger and show it how much compassion you have for it, for the work that it has done for you, keeping you safe. And eventually the tiger steps off and you stand up and you place a hand on its back and you walk side by side, because the tiger is fear and you are courage. But the two of you walk side by side. You will never dominate fear. You will never overcome fear, because it's this huge, ferocious, incredible, strong, beautiful beast that if you learn to walk alongside with it at your side, and every now and again you can feel its hackles rising and it's starting to growl, and you reassure it, it's okay, I've got this. Actually, it can keep calm and it will keep looking out for you because it loves you, but you will never be able to dominate it. So walk side by side with it. That's what I do. I do it a little bit differently to that, but it's almost
That's
like a
so
meditation
beautiful.
that I do with them. That's what I do.
I really like found myself in that cage looking up at the tiger. I'm not a female, but like I love that story. And it reminded me of like the ego, right? The ego tries to keep you playing safe and protect you. And once you understand and you are aware, then you can say, thank you, but not, I'm going to go this way and keep climbing. And the battle of fighting your ego or fear, it's so beautiful the way you said it. Like nobody will ever master 100%. So it's best that we acknowledge it and then reframe it, right? So it could actually work for us and not against us.
And I think that we have this idea as well, looking at people who are successful, whether that's, in broadcasting or in entertainment or in sport or in business or in entrepreneurship or in whatever space. And we look at someone who has done very, very well in their career, and we think that they either have something that we don't have and we want that thing, or they don't have something that we have and we wish we could, get rid of it like they've done. And what we don't realize, and again, I'm very fortunate because I've been a successful person. I am a successful person. So I understand I'm just human, just like everybody else. What I've somehow managed to do instinctively is, and I've done this my whole life. This isn't something that I've actually grown into as I've got older. I've instinctively done this since I was a child, was understanding that discomfort and pain and fear are temporary. And sometimes they are just something that you have to go through in order to get to where you're going. Whether it's, I had a very finely tuned sense of delayed gratification. I understood, right, you've got to put the work in if you're gonna, get to where you want to go. But also moments of pain, whether it's physical, emotional, mental pain, they will pass. And then once they've done and your senses are sort of lowered and you're in a calmer space, especially emotional and mental pain, what did that teach me? What did I learn from that? What was useful from that? I've been really lucky that this is something that I've been able to think that's fascinating and put it to one side, which is why, again, getting to my 50s and thinking I'm really blessed that I've been able to understand these things and I've been able to articulate them. Now I just want to pass it on to more and more people and build my community so that actually I can stop women getting into midlife dragging this bag of rocks of experiences that maybe they haven't known quite how to handle, and reassure them you can put the bag down now. It's all good. I'm going to give you some new tools. We're all good.
Yeah, so good. And you're really big on perspective and reframing it. And I think that's the key to life, right? Because sometimes we can't change the things around us, but we could change the way we look at them. And when you do that, all of a sudden where you once saw limitations and heavy bags of rocks, maybe now you see possibilities and opportunities.
Again, I think I've been very, very lucky that I've always been able to think this way. And I think it was because we moved around a lot when I was a child. So because of my dad's job, my dad was an engineer, and my parents they're gorgeous. They live about a mile from me, so it's lovely. But
Good.
and they're still happy, healthy, and well. They met when they were 15 and 16.
And for the
Um,
audience, real quick, anyone that's still fortunate enough to have their parents around, call your parents.
Yes, yes. And do you know, flipping this a little bit, but you were speaking to Ed Milet recently, and he was talking about scarcity. And I realized actually that's actually such a beautiful, powerful thing to do with your relationship with your parents. Don't take them for granted. My parents, they live around the corner, and sometimes I can get so wrapped up in the work that I'm doing and da 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 da, and then I think, I haven't called my mum for a while. I'm going to pop round. I'm going to pop round and just say, right, put the kettle on. I'm here. You know, and so I make sure I do that, because I don't ever want to get to a point where I think, you know, I could have and I didn't.
Same.
But anyway, going back to my dad was an engineer. My parents met when they were very young. They grew up in a place called the Gorbals in Glasgow. So I don't know what the equivalent would be in New York, but let's just say it's not very fancy. Let's just say it's the least fancy place of Glasgow.
Okay.
And that was where they grew up. My dad left school with no education and was lucky enough to become an apprentice engineer. And he was fortunate to be offered the chance to travel overseas to help put some machinery into a factory. They'd never been abroad before. My mom was a trainee hairdresser. They lived around the corner from grandparents who worked on the docks. And they took the plunge and they left, really scared, not knowing what their future had in store. And they never came back. They carried on traveling and working overseas for the rest of their lives until my dad retired. So what that meant was my sister and I moved around a lot. We were constantly joining schools at the wrong time, you know, and always being the new girl and all this sort of thing. And I think what that taught me was pain is temporary. The pain of being the new girl in school, it is temporary. The pain of leaving friends that I've made for 2 years, because we kind of moved countries, not just cities. It is temporary. You will find another way. And I didn't know it at the time, but those were little life lessons that little muscle that I was building. And so it meant that even as an adult, to be able to see, right, okay, this really stinks right now, but it's all right. It will pass. But in the same way, this glorious thing that I'm experiencing right now, really, really step out of yourself for a moment and look around and soak it in. What can you see? What can you hear? What can you smell? What can you feel? Really try and embed that moment, because it will pass. Sometimes I even do it on Christmas Day. It sounds crazy, but you know, if we've got the whole family round and everyone's around the table and drinking and eating turkey and doing all the things, they don't know I'm doing it. Sometimes I step back and I just take like a mental snapshot of it and think, there'll be a time when not everyone's sitting around this table. So just breathe it in and hold it and enjoy it and soak it up, because it will pass.
So good. And something that I've really worked on that's made all the difference is being mindful and present, and not worrying about anything that's going to happen 15 minutes from now or an hour ago. Just being super here, present, mindful, and in the now with you. And it's funny because when I do that, and as I like to call it, stacking magical moments, every single activity, whether it's brushing my teeth or having a conversation with you or coaching a client or doing a speak, whatever the case, spending time with my fiance, if I'm just super present and mindful in that moment and I continue to do those, all of a sudden, like it's like a portal to expansion. Now it's really how I tap into like all the creativity and the magic. It's just being super mindful. And I think there's an expression, I think Tony Robbins, and I saw you post about him the other day. I think he often says, like, if you're in your head, you're dead. Right. And so what is the solution is to just be so mindful and present and aware of the moment. And I think that's a really good place to land the plane with today.
Oh, dude, it's funny when you use the word being mindful, sometimes people get a bit, how do I do that right? You know, because we're quite obsessed with how do I do that perfectly? And actually, you don't need to think about it as a thing. It's just where you are right now. And like I say, I'm a normal person who sometimes I get overwhelmed. I think too much, and I start to whir, and I get anxious, and I get overwhelmed, and sometimes things seem too much. So I take myself for a walk, and I do the most simple exercise, and I just ask myself, what can I see? What can I hear? What can I smell? What can I feel? What can I touch? I think that's 5. I'm losing touch now, losing count now. But what that does is it brings you into the moment, and you think, oh, there's a bird. Oh, there's a tree. Oh, that's a nasty looking cloud. I hope I get home before it rains. I can see the grass. And it takes you out of your head, this thing that's worrying and making things bigger than they need to be. Doesn't have to be fancy. That's mindfulness.
That's it. So good. I genuinely love you. You're a beautiful soul. I'm so excited to continue the friendship. I'm so proud of you, of everything you're accomplishing right now. The audience is really loyal and engaging. There's 4 million now. What's the best way for them all to support you? And what are you most excited about with all the cool things you have going on right now?
Well, what I'm so excited about right now, Craig, and I hope that we can do this again, but next time with Nick, my husband,
I love that.
is 2023 is the year that we launched This Girl, This Guy. So This Girls on Fire has been going we're coming to our 5th year now, but only coming to our 3rd year in terms of a proper community. And we've been slowly building this Guys on Fire on the side, but we've realized actually we're so strong together. So we're putting on events, virtual and in person, and we're also going to be launching a YouTube channel, This Girl, This Guy, where we're going to be having conversations from a male and female perspective. And I touched on it earlier. You know, we're so different. I'm a bit soft. He's a bit harder. He's a bit more, no, we need to do this. And I'm a bit more, okay, well, actually, I can see both sides of that. So we think it's going to be lots of fun. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. And in terms of if people want to reach out to me, I'm Andrea McLean 1 on Instagram. Oh, look, this is my husband. I'm going to take this and tell him where I am. I'm going to put him on speaker. Hi, you're now live on Craig's podcast.
How you doing?
Hello.
That's awesome.
Shall I speak to you later?
Tell him we're going to get both of you back on together.
He's in Nando's. Okay. All right. I'll speak to you later. He says we're both. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
That's awesome. Love it.
But yes, look us up on thisgirlisonfire.com. You'll see it all there.
I love it. Andrea, hang up for 1 second. I want to connect with you after. I want you to know you're the definition of perspective, authenticity, and reinvention. From taking your life experiences to spreading positivity, light, and deep truths. You're a true visionary, role model, and beacon of hope for anybody coming up to big goals and aspirations. I could personally guarantee that your best is yet to come. Keep on spreading your wings and leaving your mark on this world. So much love and respect for you. Thank you so much for stopping by and dropping these priceless, juicy nuggets today.
Thank you so much. You are lovely, and I'm looking forward to our friendship growing over the years.
That was so much fun. Timing is everything.
It is. It is. Especially with him ringing from Nando's.
Unbelievable. I genuinely love you. I'm so excited for you, and I wasn't kidding. I'm really proud of you. How else can I personally support you?
Do you know, it would be really wonderful if Nick and I can come back on together. You will love him. I mean, you heard a tiny bit of him, but that would be lovely if we could both come on together and just talk about what we're doing together.
Done. And also, you have your own podcast now, right?
I do. This Girls on Fire podcast we're going to be starting our 3rd season this year. We've got some really exciting guests lined up this year, which I don't want to say too much about.
Only women or men too?
So I only interview women purely because the This Girl is on Fire idea is I interview women who I feel are on fire. And what makes it unusual is, you know, I've interviewed Jo Malone, the real Jo Malone, who people know of from the perfume and candles and this sort of thing. I've interviewed dames, CBEs, incredible either entrepreneurs or showbiz legends, but I've also interviewed people you will have never heard of, people I've stumbled across in my real life. And I just think you're an amazing human and your story is so fantastic. I want to share it with the world. So yes, it's only women, but that will change when Nick and I start doing our work together. So we'll be chatting to
I love it.
Men and women.
If you're ever looking for a male guest, I'd love to support you guys.
You're in. You don't even know it yet, but you're in.
Are you coming back to New York anytime soon?
Hopefully, really hopefully. We were planning to be over there earlier this, well, we're still in January, but about now, but it didn't happen in the end. Because I know last time I was over, we didn't manage to meet in person. But next time we are over, we are definitely going to dinner. And I want to meet your fiance in real life. She looks awesome.
Thank you. Done and done. What time is it over there for you right now?
5 o'clock in the evening.
PM on Wednesday?
Mm-hmm.
So cool. The power of Zoom and all that stuff. This was so much fun. I can't wait to support. My team's going to cut up some great content. I'll tag you in some stuff, and we'll blow it up and so forth. Let's build a friendship. Let's stay connected. And I'm excited about all to come for both of us.
Thank you so much. And you just keep doing what you're doing, because you are incredible. You are going great guns, and keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
I promise I will. And I love the tiger visualization exercise. That was really powerful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good night, Andrea. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.